Hey everybody, what's going on? Chords here, and today instead of doing individual sound design tutorials, we're gonna layer multiple synths into one huge dubstep kind of chord synth. So as you can hear, there's a lot of stuff going on there, but we'll take a look at each individual element, and it's probably going to be a bit of a long video. Also, I want to apologize in advance if I get any problems with my computer, because it's quite a lot of voices. Okay, let's jump straight to Antidote 1, the first synth in this epic arrangement. Pitch bend automation is being applied here, so that's the first thing I want to talk about. Instead of playing just the notes that are in this clip, I've applied some pitch bend at the beginning of each clip. So if you take a look here, it just goes down from the maximum negative value to the middle, or it goes up from the maximum negative value to the middle, and it sounds like this. It's completely dry. It's just an antidote with a super saw, so that's 7 digital saw voices with full spread. And I also layered a tiny bit of pulse over there. That's oscillator 2, but you can barely hear it, so in relation. Now, the effects chain on this is simply a compressor, some equalization, and tape distortion, as well as we've got an Audiomatic on here with the hi-fi setting. If I turn all these off, it changes the sound drastically. The equalization here is quite important, and this sound doesn't necessarily sound very big, but it's a layer, so you gotta keep that in mind. Also, you can hear that the notes end rather abruptly and there's little gaps in between. This is also quite important, but I'll get back to that later. Next element, let me just quickly scroll down here. Antidote 3, let's take a listen to what that is. Okay, so here we have some sort of distorted sub-bass. We've got 2 pulse waves with a medium spread, some detune, and it looks like they are going into an equalizer, and then once again we've got some rather harsh distortion. If I turn this off, it becomes much less nasty. So this is layered on top of the first synth, and those two sound together like this. Okay, antidote number 2. This is the melody kind of part, I think. This one's a bit more interesting because we've got several things going on here. First of all, we've got some LFO modulation being applied to the pitch fine parameter, which is just simply, you can choose between pitch coarse and pitch fine. If I were to put pitch coarse, you'd get this sort of effect, but fine is good for vibrato kind of sounds. Also, I've got the mod wheel routed to the LFO1 amount, so that means I can control the amount of vibrato using the mod wheel, and I've only got the vibrato coming in on those longer notes, so that these short little staccato notes here are completely straight, while the long notes are being modulated and they have some vibrato. Of course, we've got the same pitch bend automation as well as in the first one. And this is basically just a melody to complement the chord synths and the bass. I made this one quite mid frequency intensive, so of course I'm boosting the highs a little bit, but also I want this synth to have the most presence. So I carved out EQ spaces on the other ones and gave this one a little boost here at around 1 kHz or to 2 kHz, something in that direction. So this will make it a bit more present. And then towards the end of the phrase here, I've just got some edits. So if we take a listen to that in solo. Pretty nice synth, quite melodic. If we take a look at how that one was made, yeah, we can't actually, there's not too much processing involved in this one actually. It's simply the antidote with a pulse wave and another pulse wave oscillator. I'm assuming, yeah, let's actually take a listen to how it would sound if I turned these off, and then we can see how these oscillators were composited, if that's a word. So let's turn all those off. Okay, typical pulse wave, and then we've got the layer of more like a... I mean, I can't say super saw, it's more like a super pulse, but it's multiple voices. And it's always nice to layer those two if you want to go for lead synths, because you'll get the fatness from this oscillator over here, where it's multiple voices playing. But if you mix it with another oscillator, maybe even a mono oscillator, then you'll have the distinctive leading voice here and kind of like accompanying voices that surround it over there, which is quite nice. Some sub-oscillation is in there as well, which basically just copies whatever oscillator here you select and pitches it down by an octave, and also disables the spread, which means you can add a nice sub-layer. And this results in a pretty fat synth. Let's scroll down further. There's some muted stuff here. It's some strings apparently. Those are from the intro, I believe. Yes, beautiful, but they don't belong here. We've got some cheesy vocals. But I mean, I don't have to talk about that too much. Drums are over here. And then here's another combinator. As you can see, I did a lot of experimentation with different note clips, as it has 4 lanes, but I decided to go with this chord thing. And once again, this is my massive patch. Now, don't confuse it with the actual synthesizer massive. I just called it massive before I even knew that Native Instruments massive existed. But basically what this is a ton of Thors with distortion and stuff. I talked about it in another video, but I can't really remember which one, so sorry. But yeah, if you want to take a look, it's basically, I tried to emulate multi-oscillators because, or multi-oscillators with spread, rather, because I didn't have Antidote back at the time, and back in the day the rack extension format wasn't even developed yet, but I tried to make up for that, and it's also a really nice tip I can give to you guys who don't have Antidote or any real multi-oscillator synth, or stereo multi-oscillator synth. Just layer a couple of Thors and set the individual oscillator parameters, and then pan them to the left and the right. So let's put those on exclusive solo and take a listen here. So this is the center one. Also absolutely horrible distortion on here, bad EQ, but this patch is from like 4 years ago and I put it in there and I didn't care. And then we've got the left and the right channel. It's very clicky. I should adjust the attack and everything, but I can't be bothered right now. Yeah, so that is layered with the other elements, and now I'm gonna take a quick second here to activate the other ones that we've already taken a look at, so you can kind of make sense of how this is gonna come together later. So it's already pretty big, but let's see if we can't maybe find some other elements that come into play. Combinator 2. Some strings, let's see. Tutu string section, one of the best string patches in the factory sound bank. I just copied basically the chords and the melody over here and left it like that. No editing whatsoever. And then this is kind of like a, if you've ever seen the Tron soundtrack, that's, or if you've seen the Tron soundtrack, yeah, makes sense. Now, if you've seen the movie Tron Legacy, as well as listen to the soundtrack by Daft Punk, there's some great stuff to learn about synth design and mixing there, so definitely check that out. And I tried to emulate one of the patches for the bass here. This one's being filtered, but I think that filter is on the mixer, so let's have a look. Yeah. So this is my attempt at emulating one of those awesome Daft Punk basses, but it goes really, really well with the other elements. I'm not going to bother reactivating them now, because, yeah, we can do that later. Let's instead have a look at what else we've got here. I think that might actually have been it. Okay, in that case, I'll do an individual soloing of the elements, so you can have another listen. Oh, by the way, I wanted to talk about this staccato thing here. I synchronized the kick drums with the synth, and the way I've got it synchronized is I'm playing, or I'm re-triggering rather, the synth every time the kick drum hits. So if I activate my kick drum here, which should be red drum 1. No, that's my sidechain. Kick drum Kong 10. No, those are probably hi-hats. Sorry. I'm not very professional about this, I know, but I'll try to find it anyway. Come on. Where is it? Ah, Kong 8. Now, I could have just drawn in huge notes like this, but it would have lessened the impact of the kick drum. Instead, I put a little pause just before each kick drum hit. So this tiny amount of silence right here, this little gap, adds a lot of impact to the kick drum. And also to the synth. And if you take a look at the other elements, yeah, it's not really... I think I also did it with the lead synth, but it's much more subtle. Yeah, definitely much more subtle. Also, this one has reverb, which makes the effect less prominent. But if I scroll down further, maybe here. And then also this one, maybe? No, those are the strings. Strings don't need it because they're pretty much in the background. And also they have a long attack, so that's not really necessary. Of course the bass has these little gaps as well, but you can kind of tell the difference. And then also what I wanted to talk to you about is, of course, as always, the sidechaining, which is always really, really important when you're making electronic music of all sorts. Where was my sidechain? I think it was the one single red drum. So I always like to demonstrate the impact that sidechaining can have by turning or by switching my ghost kick signal on and off. If you want to see how I sidechain my stuff, then I've got tons of material on sidechaining on my channel. But yeah, this is without sidechaining, and this is with. Of course, we've also got the sidechain for the snare here, which is the upper lane. I'm just gonna mute that real quick. And this is how all these effects synergize quite nicely. Now, if I reactivate the drums and mute individual elements, you can maybe also tell how these layers make one big synth. So let's mute individual elements and see what it does. So as you remember, this is this super saw. It kind of fills out the high end of the frequency spectrum. Then here we've got the bass, which is like a low-mid kind of bass. And if I mute that, it becomes much cleaner, but it also loses some body. Then we'll take a look at the lead synth. This obviously will be most noticeable. But you could also, if you were to do something with vocals maybe, you could use this for the hook, and then for the verse parts you could mute this or filter it or something. What else? Here's my drum section again. Strings. No, this is the other epic synth, or epic in quotation marks. This one is least noticeable, but I think it still gives it a nice amount of flavor. It adds some high end, and also it adds some impact, because as I said earlier, the synth clicks a lot because I've got insane amounts of tape distortion, which also comes with compression, of course, and I didn't give those synthesizers any attack. So you can really hear that. And right now it's very, dominant when you listen to it on solo, but as soon as that drowns in the mix, it just adds a tiny bit of impact. The strings, let's mute the strings. Not really a noticeable difference. think I might have left those in there for psychological reasons. And of course, then there's the Tron bass that I was talking about. I'm hoping this will take out a lot of sub bass if I mute it. Otherwise, I'll have to check my mix and see where I didn't EQ correctly. Yeah, I think I might have to take another look at that. But it's also there, and it adds a bit of warmth to the sound. So, as you can see, this big synth, so to speak, is actually comprised out of 5 different layers, or 6, I don't know, I didn't count. But when I used to start, or when I started making music, I used to think that getting a huge soundscape like this was just a matter of tweaking your one synthesizer correctly, because to the listener it might sound like one big sound. Also, because they all share similar sort of techniques, because they've all got these little gaps, they're all playing the same notes, so they sound very similar. If they are, you know, if you just listen to them without the individual elements, if you just listen to the bass. So yeah, try to get away from the mindset of having one instrument, and always experiment with layering. If in doubt, you can always add another layer, you can always take it away, but the experimentation is definitely important. So yeah, that was it for the huge dubstep synth, and I wish you all a pleasant evening.